jack, there's box locks and side locks, as we know. Earlier we took apart, completely cleaned, and reassembled a box lock, and now we've got a nice Spanish side lock that we need to do the same thing with. Think you know how to do that?
I think so. I think so, Larry. Thank you. Okay, now the procedure is very similar to the box lock, except you've got the side locks to take out as well. There's one pin goes through the locks to hold the locks in this one. Some side locks have a pin at the front to hold the front of the lock, but in this case we've only got the one, so we just take that one out and lock on the right hand side. That's the lock plate pin, or side nail as some people call it. The lock should come out. They'll find their own way out. That's the right hand lock, and do the same with the other side, and there is the left hand lock.
So we got the locks out.
We've got the locks out. Now the next thing is to take out the guide screws. Take out the front one first, and
let me hold that one for you.
The front one has a flat
on the front.
A flat on the end of the. Instead of on a point, it's got a little flat on the end. Now the rear one doesn't have. They leave them pointed. So the way to tell which is which, the front one has a flat on it. If it's only got one guard screw, then there's no need to mark it. Oh, that's on the floor. Oops. So that's got a point on it. That's got a flat on it. So the flat one with the flat on it is the front one.
Pretty easy to remember.
That's right. The next thing is to hit the back of the of the bow of the guard.
Just tap that just lightly, and it pulls that forward and lets it right out.
It'll pop up. Some are much tighter than that, and you have to give them a harder bang to shift them. Now, the next thing is take out the hand pin. That's this one under.
Now this is what I call the wrist pin, because it goes through the wrist, but it's where the hand goes, so the English call it the hand. That pulls straight out. That's the hand pin. Standard pin.
Now the next thing to come out is, just like the box lock, the breech pin. That's the pin underneath the top lever.
Now this is a much larger diameter pin.
No, it's approximately the same diameter pin as with a box lock, but it's got maybe the head is a little. This has a bigger head, maybe. That's all. It's bigger. It's got a bigger head than the hand pin. Then finally, the last one to come out before you take the wood, to get the wood up, is the trigger plate pin, which is the one on the underside, and they're usually very tight.
I was going to say, in my experience, they are always tight.
Get your shoulder to them, and if in doubt, if you don't want to slip, hold it in a vice, which is your third hand, and that's it. And then get your shoulder to it. There we go. Once you've started moving, it'll come out easily. Yeah, it's a short. So it's, of course, being a Spanish gun, it's metric. That's you can't. There's no others underneath to mix it to get it confused with. And the next thing is to put the turn screw, or put drift or anything down in the back slot, just to you can also bang the front of the receiver on the, or the action on the bench, and out it comes, it jars it out. Then the next stage is take the action off the stock, it just slips out easily, and there we are, the stock is off now. There is a little pin in this gun here, which you mustn't lose. It goes through, it's the pin that makes the safe automatic.
That's the automatic safety pin.
It's just a little piece of wire, you might say. It goes through from the where the underbolt goes right through to where the safe bar fits. And there we have I always look at these and look how well the stocking has been done, and it's not bad for a Spanish gun.
Not bad for a Spanish gun.
That's right.
Now we're going to strip the action.
Strip the action out. Now you can start here. You can take out the cocking lever pins. This is the left-hand side. Now we've got to remember it's Spanish, and it's Spanish, and the Spanish mark the right-hand side, not the left. The English mark the left, so we mustn't get confused.
So this pin won't be marked because it's the left.
This one won't, because it's the left. If I can get it out. I need a pair of pliers. Take out that one. That is the right-hand side, and you can slide out the cocking lever from the front.
Okay,
that's
so
the cocking lever.
Cocking lever here.
That's right. Underneath the cocking lever, there's a little flat spring which is held in a little dovetail at the back of the action.
Okay.
I don't take those out. I leave them in there. Sometimes they fall out.
That keeps the cocking lever up.
That keeps the cocking lever in the down position when the gun is cocked. If it didn't have that little spring in there, the cocking lever would be flopping around, and the gun would be ejecting half the time.
Let's see how that pin's marked there now.
That's right. It's got a little cut on the bone. A little mark.
A little cut right on the end, so that you can tell that this one belongs on the right side, because the Spanish mark them on the right.
That's correct.
Well, pretty neat.
And also the Italians mark them on the right, the Belgians, the Germans, only the English mark the left.
Okay.
Okay, we've got all that out. Now,
why again don't you take those springs out? They're just hard to get out.
Yeah, they're dovetailed in here.
I got you. Okay.
You see, you can just see the end of them there.
Right.
They'll stay in place.
Right.
If they're loose and they drop out, then you put them back in.
Okay.
And secure them. There, we take the spring out. It just pulls out. That's the top lever spring. There's a peg on the end which goes in a hole. There's the one leg, the left-hand leg is a bit longer than the right-handed leg. The right-handed one goes in a slot in the top lever. The other rests against the edge of a slot in the body.
What type of top lever spring do you call this?
That's in England. That would be called a continental top lever spring.
Continental type.
That's right, because there's no nib on the end of the left-hand arm of the spring, and it has a peg on the end.
Okay, continental type. Now we're going to take the safety spring out.
Safety spring out now. It's just a little screw and holding a little flat spring.
Right. So this just basically is a safety detent to make sure the safety clicks when it slides forward now.
It slips over a little V cut in into the safe bar itself. Now there's just like a grub screw that goes through the holds the safety button or safe thumb piece. You can call this a safety button or thumb piece, whichever you want to call it, because your thumb pushes it. And the little screw holds the safety bar to the thumb piece. Simple way of doing things. There we are. That's that little tiny screw.
No head on it.
No head on it. Then you can just tap the. There's the safe button or thumb piece, and that's the safety bar. And the next thing to come out is the top lever work, the lever work.
And this screw is tight also, so.
This should be it could be very tight, so use your third hand, shove it in the vise. Get a turn screw that fits it pretty good. This one is a bit full, but here we go. There we go, start it moving.
And that one was polished after the it was put in, so it's got a contoured head on it.
Well, no, very often these are case hardened. This may have been case hardened, and I haven't got a file handy to check it, but it may have been a case hardened. They just polished it off afterwards. Now that's got the top lever pin out. Now, to get the rest of the lever work apart, I've got to tap out or knock out the spindle. Now this spindle is just the same as what the English use, slightly different, but the same principle. Does exactly the same thing. It's a Scott spindle, but it's a Spanish version.
The Spanish version of the Scott spindle.
That's right. And much simpler than what the English one. That's the spindle. Okay, we've taken out the spindle. Now the next thing is to take out the lever. That just lifts out. This one's a bit sticky. There, it lifts out. That's the top lever. On the underbolt, you can just lever that out from the bottom. And there is the underbolt.
So that's the bolt that holds the barrels down.
That's right. To get the firing pins out, or strikers, whichever you want to call them, there's a little screw either at the bottom of each fence with a hole through the centre. It's called a gas check. It also holds in place these striker discs. These are the discs in these discs in the front of the base of the action that hold the strikers back.
The firing pins.
Those firing pins, whichever you want to call them. Here's the gas check.
Now, are these going to be left and right?
You can't. That's right. It should be marked somewhere. Now, this is the left. So
we wouldn't expect it to be marked.
Sometimes a cut on the bottom, or if not, someone on the side of the head. That one looks as though it's been squashed a little bit.
Let's set it out there.
There's a hole in the centre of them.
Drilled all the way through to let any gas escape from the side of the action.
In case if you did happen to get a blowback. Now one on the right, and it looks as though it's got a cut across the bottom of it, and you can see the hole in the center of that one.
I can see a cut across the face of it.
That's
for sure.
Correct, yeah.
And so that's the right one.
That's right. Now, to remove the firing pins or strikers, you've got to remove these two striker discs. Now, very often these striker discs with shooting, they expand and you can't move them with a handheld tool.
Mm-hmm.
So the easiest way to remove them is to use a brace and a specially made tool for the job. This is the brace and this is the little bit to take it out, and there's two prongs which go in two holes in the disc, and you can, with a brace, very often you can remove them. You can sometimes, now I say sometimes, remove them, because sometimes they're in there so tight you just can't move them, and you have to destroy them to get them out and fit new discs. Like that one, for instance. That one won't move, and I don't have discs I don't have any discs here with me to fit, and it's a major job fitting a new disc.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to destroy them to take them out, now this one's turning, this one will come out, and they go in at an angle. There we go. I'll have a go at the other one in a moment. Now there is the striker disc. As you can see, that the face is angled. Now then the firing pin will push out from the back, and you can pull it out from the front with its little spring. There we go. There we go. There's the firing pin and its little spring that fits on the front part of it. Now that one is that is the left hand side, so that won't be marked. The right one will be marked. Now, so you see what happens when you slip on a disc. You get a nice little mark where you've marked it. But again, I can re-blue that disc and cover that up later on if I can shift this disc. Now I have somewhere in my box of tricks, I've got a new disc to show you what they're like, which I can show you in a moment, just so you'll know what's involved with fitting these things. So I'll try one of the other tools I've got to see if that will shift it better. Put that out of the way. This one's got a hammer it, knock it into place.
What you're looking for there is really a precision fit, and even sometimes then it won't bring it out.
So even then it'll. Got him. They're very tight. Sometimes you can get a pair of needle nose pliers and just turn them and they'll come out. There you go, the same thing.
We think that one's marked.
This should be marked, but it isn't. But we know I'm going to mark it. See, they haven't marked either. You can't get these mixed up because of the hole in the side there for the gas escape. But sometimes I just put a cut on them. It doesn't really matter. Now the firing pin should be marked. Good Lord, they haven't marked. There's a little mark on the side there. That's where mark on the collar of the firing pin. That signifies that it's the right.
And then this piece here we thought ought to be marked. See that little mark right there?
That is a location mark for when you screw it in. They've got one here on the face.
But there's not one on the other. There's a real short one on the other.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's a little mark on the face. It's a location mark.
Okay.
So when it's fully screwed up, those line up.
Right. Okay. The long mark is on the.
That's right. Well, I
the left one.
Put them in quickly. So that is the body completely stripped.
So this we think of as a receiver.
The body or receiver, whatever you want to call it. Now the furniture, just like the box lock, unscrew the guard, place it in your box. Now here there's a little trigger spring here, held by a little screw on the guard. You see, it just keeps the triggers in contact with the sears in the lock.
We won't get any rattle that way.
That's right. That's all it does. Just keeps the triggers in contact with the sears of the locks. Now you take that out. It's held by a little pin. And turn it, and it just comes out. It's just a little wiry spring.
Just a couple little pieces of wire there.
That's right. One piece of wire
bent together.
You take out the trigger pin, which is looks like the threads are no good on that. Right, just put it. All it does is the axis for the triggers.
No, there weren't any threads on it. No, there are threads on it. Kind of a couple threads.
Slide the triggers out of the slots. Now the front trigger is thicker than the back trigger because it's an articulated trigger.
Right.
As you can see,
articulated means that you can push it forward.
That's right. In case somebody bangs their gets their finger banged by the back when they've got the finger on the back trigger, and with the recoil, the finger comes up against the back of the front trigger. They don't get a bruise. And I have the last remaining piece, which is the trigger plate.
And Jack, let's talk about the locks. I know you're going to be ready to take those apart here next. This is, I'm going to say, an English style lock, and here I have a famous L.C. Smith lock. Why don't you be kind enough to tell us what the difference is before you start tearing that one apart?
Well, the Spanish lock here is designed similar to the English style of lock, where you've got the hammer, bridle, main sear, intercepting sear or safety sear, whichever you like to call it, and the mainspring in the front. The mainspring's connected to the tumbler or hammer by a swivel. Now, with your L.C. Smith, you've got 4 pieces and 2 screws. Not much in it. It doesn't have an intercepting sear. In other words, it doesn't have a safety sear. The reason for the safety sear or interceptor sear is if the gun was dropped, it should not fire. With one of these L.C. Smiths, if you drop the gun, it could jar it off and it could fire and kill somebody's dog.
Sure.
Now, that's the big difference. This is a simple lock. It works. I mean, that's it. As long as it works, it works.
All right.
Here, this is a little bit more complicated, and the reason they do this style of lock is because it looks like an English one at a distance. I mean, it's not as well made as an English one. It can't be at the price they charge for the finished gun, but it does the trick.
All right, you ready to take these apart?
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
The first thing is to let the hammer down. And what I do with it, you can press it and fire it like that, but what you can do is get a turn screw, hold it against the hammer, press the 2 sears. I think you have to see that. Press the 2 sears and let the hammer forward. Then take out the main spring. You can take this out with a pair of pliers usually. or if you take it out with a pair of pliers, if the pin is tight in its hole, be careful. One of the safest things, the way to get the springs out is to use a mainspring vise or mainspring cramp. You guys call it a vise, we call it a cramp. And put that on the spring, close it up, taking the tension off the spring. Then you can, if it's tight and the pin's tight, I'll prise it out, take it out. If you're doing a repair to a lock and you're going to put it back in, you can leave that in the cramped up like that until you need to put it back. But in this case, we're doing a strip and clean, so you can take it out. There we go. That's your mainspring, Larry. It's not as good as an English spring, but it does the trick.
Okay, and we're hooking here with the stirrup. And we've
swivel,
got a pin on it here, a swivel. Okay.
Yeah, you can,
it's a stirrup in America.
I don't care. I'll keep trying to teach them swivel. The next thing is to unscrew all the screws in the bridle pins.
Are those going to be marked?
Very often that they are marked, and sometimes they're not. Though they should be marked 1, 2, and 3, and also right and left. Now let's see how they've marked these. Now this is a left-hand one, left-hand lock. So we'll see how they've marked them. I can't find any marks on that one. None at all.
So the Spanish have universal pins.
Well, they're probably about similar length, and there's no marks on that one either. So what I'll do there's no marks on that one. I think there's a mark, one mark on that one, a 1. That might have been the one that went in the front end. I can't.
Jack, this one has 2 marks on it.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, that did come out the middle, so the middle one.
I don't see anything on this one.
No, so obviously the man who made the gun, he knew what he knew. Had his own marking system, but we'll put them back in the holes in the bridle and put the bridle in the box. We'll sort that out later. Now, next thing is press up both sears and lift the hammer or tumbler, whichever you want to call it. Lift that out. Comes out. And there's your swivel. Held on a pin in the lock.
And here's the cocking indicator we can see on the other side.
That's right. It's gold inlaid. That's a bit of gold there. Be careful, it might drop out. Sometimes it does. I must be honest and say that if I do replace a hammer, I put a cocking indicator in them, but I don't use gold. That is the intercepting sear, and that is your main sear.
Okay.
Now, I've got a case here where it looks as though I've got to replace the intercepting sear spring.
Right.
It's got a kink in it. It's bent. It's a mess. So I should probably replace that when I get back home. Anyway, that is just held with one little pin. Let's take the other one out. Worry about that later. And there's the sear spring and its pin. This one is half the threads are gone, I think. I've undone it and undone it. There must be 1,000 threads I can't see. There we go.
Now this is the intercepting sear spring and the pin
right.
that holds it in place, and that's got just a little bit of thread strippage on it.
That's right. And there's your
that's the left lock plate stripped.
That's correct, yeah. And again, okay, now the other lock, same thing, onto the forend. Here we go, there's the Hansen rod and spring, just like the English ones.
Rod and spring.
Now, the next thing is to take out the tailpipe pin. Here comes the tailpipe. That's the tailpipe out. Shake it, shake or push out the. Shake or push out this little pin here. There we go. There's the tailpipe pin. And the next one to come out is the one in the middle of the forend, the one that goes through to the diamond. Pull out that pin. That's the diamond pin. Then with shove something into the tube and lift up on the forend iron, and out of the wood it comes.
So there's the wood.
That's the wood. Partially machined and partially hand fitted. Now the forend, the snap on the forend is a bit different to the English. It's held with a screw or pin here. Just take that out, the little pin, and here's the snap.
This one's got a shoulder here that slides back. Slides back
That's
and forth.
right. Fits the slot in the back. Yeah. The only thing that remains in the forend is the ejector work or ejector system, which is a type of Southgate. It's entirely different to the English. You can take the springs out with pliers like this, being careful to take the back end slides out of a little half-round slot, and be careful not to let them fly. Let them open out under control. They're just like the English ones. The adjustment is the same as on the English one. Under control. There's the other one. They're greasy because the gun's been greased. Now, the next thing to take out is the cocking bar, the ejector cocking bar, which is a piece in the middle. This is a piece that the English gun doesn't have.
Right.
Is to knock out the and pull it. There we go. That's the cocking bar pin. And this cocking bar will lift out. There's a spring.
That's spring loaded.
There's a little coil spring underneath it, so being careful not to lose it. That's the cocking bar, and there is the cocking bar spring. Little tiny spring goes in a hole there. Now, the big difference between this and the English, they have this cocking bar, and these two, there's two ears, so a piece is sticking out of the side on the cocking bar, and it's the front of these two pieces that pull the cocking levers, pull the ejector kickers into the cock position. It works. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the system, and this little pin here, that's the pin, the ejector kicker pin, and here's the two ejector kickers just coming out. they lie together just like the English ones do, but the English Southgate ejector has a hinge pin that goes through the middle of the knuckle on the ear. This has a hinge pin. The hinge pin is further back, in a position further back. So the whole setup is slightly different. And then there's this little sliding cam here, which is your cam which gives you primary lift to lift your extractors up to get your cases out. Normally I leave those in, I don't mess with them. As I say, it's held with a little tiny grub screw there, and that's the Forend completely stripped down.
Okay, well I think what we need to do is take the extractors out and we'll be ready to clean it up.
And
this got a locking screw in it, doesn't it?
This has a little locking screw in this, and they started fitting these little locking screws or pins, but when because the extractor stop pins would work their way out, and you can imagine if a man has worked its way out and the man closed his gun, the extractor stop pin would push up a bump on the bottom of the action or receiver, or even crack a hole in it. There we go. One little tiny pin.
That's the smallest one we've seen.
The smallest one we've seen. And I can't move it, so use the third hand. I shouldn't be repairing this. Was sold by my opposition. New England Custom Gun Service. Right, now let me see if I can move it with this one. There we go. There's the extractor stop pin, just like the English ones. And here's I'll pick that up later. Here's the extractors. Somebody's got some rust on them. But
so that's the last piece. Are we down to the last piece?
Last piece of the lot.
All right. Well, let's.
I certainly hope your opinion of these Spanish guns has changed for the better.
For the better. Well, let's clean everything up and then we'll put it back together, Jack.
Okay.